So what is really going on is the question, as we said. What could this mean beyond Fox News, though, itself in this one particular case? With us tonight to draw the legal lines in a little bolder fashion is entertainment, corporate, and libel attorney Tre Lovell. Mr. Lovell, for those who haven't been watching every single drip, drip, drop, drop, because there's been a ton of them, what is the main thing we need to know about the legal groundwork here?
Well, first of all, in terms of defamation cases, this is the Super Bowl. This is probably the biggest defamation case that we've had, certainly against the media. And it's very unique and very consequential for a number of reasons. The first is it's going to trial. I mean, most defamation cases against the media will get dismissed early on based on First Amendment grounds. But if you happen to get by a motion to dismiss like Fox did here, usually the cases will settle either before discovery or certainly after discovery, but they rarely will go to trial. So that's very unique here. The second aspect is the incredible evidence against Fox. When you're proving actual malice, which means Dominion has to prove that Fox either knew the broadcasts were false or acted in reckless disregard for the truth of those broadcasts. The way you prove that is almost universally through inference, through circumstantial evidence. You rarely have admissions. You rarely have the defendant saying, oh, I knew I was lying, I knew it was false. Here we have hosts, anchors, and even executives doubting the broadcast, which amounts to an admission and direct evidence of falsity. And the third is the court's pretrial rulings. Fox moved for summary judgment to try to get out of the case as a matter of law and avoid going to trial. Now, the judge denied that, which is not unusual. But on the flip side, it alleviated some of Dominion's requirements of what it had to prove its claims. It said, as a matter of law, you don't have to prove this. That's very unique. And that puts Dominion far, far ahead. It's like if you equate it to a baseball game, it's almost like putting the batter on third base, where he starts and then running home. And then the last is certainly the long-term effects that this could have. If Fox loses based on this evidence, it's going to be almost create an insurmountable example of holding the media dependent. So it's important.
I want to get to that. Real quick, though, before you've laid out the known facts that you think are the most consequential, are there any unknown facts at this point that you think still have not been filled in yet?
So what Fox has accused Dominion on those statements that it put in its briefs of cherry picking. So we don't know the full context of how a lot of those statements came out, and that may be a big difference. Because when you say just one or two lines, but you leave out the entire conversation and the context is out, that can make a big difference on whether they really believed it, whether they're just saying different things that may not know that that's true. So I think the context of the statements, the testimony certainly is going to be important. I mean, what in their depth. When they get on the stand and, Sean Hannity or Tucker Carlson are faced with, hey, did you say this? Didn't you believe this? It's going to be interesting cross-examination. So a lot of it's going to come out while the trial's going on. So a lot of unknowns.
I see. Okay, so as far as implications, libel, defamation, those are hard to prove. And they're engineered to be that way if you're a public figure because, anyone can sue for anything otherwise, and you can never print anything a powerful person doesn't want you to print, right? News organizations do have a certain level of protection. I don't think a lot of people realize the internal dialogue that most of us have in our newsrooms. Like, most stuff probably doesn't make it to air because we can't prove it, right? In this case, it's different. You have people talking about, like, Sidney Powell's a nut job. She's a liar. I caught her, and they still put her on the air. When does it rise to the level of illegality?
Well, first of all, that's kind of the danger of having these things go to trial, and when the inner workings of the news media are exposed, it can be very embarrassing. People can be joking around about things that other people take it very seriously. So that's one of the major problems. But it comes when the illegality kicks in, when it becomes clear that the media is saying things they know to be false. Now that bar is really high, and you can rarely prove it because you have to get inside the head of the defendants and what they knew. It's not an objective standard, it's a subjective standard. And in most cases, you're not going to have anybody admitting anything that they knew was false. So you have to prove through all these different areas that high bar. So when you reach that high level of knowledge and you can prove they knew it, that's when you're hitting the liability standards. But it's rarely done. It's incredibly difficult, and for good reason. And the media needs room to be wrong, but they can't be wrong knowingly, because people get hurt, lives get ruined, businesses get ruined, and it could be a draconian result.
And when you're wrong, you fess up. That's one of the rules of the game. You know, you get the microphone, you fess up if you get it wrong. Now, I wonder, who do you want to hear from, not just for intrigue purposes, because there is some palace intrigue here, but to actually get some clarity on this, to sway this in either direction?
The anchors, certainly, because they're the ones that are having discourse with the guests. They're sometimes adopting their statements in their openings or when they're speaking with them, and to really know what they knew. So you definitely want to hear from the anchors and the hosts. And then certainly you want to hear from Murdoch. Murdoch is what ties Fox Corp into this, because they sued Fox News. It's largely an issue that the jury has to decide is, who published it? Was it just Fox News, or did Fox Corporation also be deemed as a publisher, hold them liable? Rupert Murdoch is the key to that, because if Fox News is leveraging in decisions and Murdoch, he's going to tie Fox Corp as a defendant as well. So, you want to hear it from the hosts and anchors themselves, because they're the ones that are making the statements, they're the ones that are having the conversations, and to put up what they said, on cross-examination, and Rupert Murdoch.
I see. And if they do hatch out a deal before this really goes to trial, that may be the reason why, because they don't want people like Rupert Murdoch to have to get on the stand. We'll see. In the meantime, do you see this case, Mr. Lovell, changing the way news organizations operate? Because, you want the opportunity for the Pentagon Papers to get out there. That was not popular. Many people thought that was illegal. But you also don't want blatant lies on the air either. So do you think this is going to change the game?
I do. First of all, the fact that this case has gone this far, I think it's put a lot of the media organizations on notice. I think that depending on who wins, we're in an era now of disinformation, of a lot of falsity out there. And there's a strong push for news organizations to be more accountable. This case tests that. As I said, if Fox wins, they're really making the bar so high that it may not put those constraints on the media that may be a little bit necessary. But the other thing to consider is if either side loses, they're probably going to appeal. And this thing may make its way to the U.S. Supreme Court. Now, a couple of the justices have intimated they want to change the actual malice standard in defamation. They think it's too high. They think the bar should be lowered to sue news organizations. This case could be a vehicle for that. And so it's going to make a lot of people nervous if this thing does actually go to trial, gets a verdict, a judgment, and is appealed and works its way through the courts, because that could be a precipice to changing defamation law. So it's a very consequential case.
Well, defamation and libel law inside and out. The rest of us getting a crash course. Tre Lovell, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Up next.